Bombshell tonight in the Nolan Wells investigation. Tonight, a Nolan Wells phone evidence torpedo. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
All but, I believe, one took a polygraph, and from what was told to me, that they all passed.
Nancy, my clients have not taken a polygraph test.
Nobody's guilty, and everybody's a suspect. We don't know the truth yet, but we will.
We have had multiple witnesses reach out to us, two confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. on July 4th, well after the Triton, as you said, left around 4:30. And so those witnesses have went to investigators, they've talked to the police, and they've done what they're supposed to do. These witnesses know Nolan. They've known him for a long time. They were able to make a positive ID. And they told that to investigators. They told them that from the very start.
What witnesses? Where? Who, what, where, why, and when? That is a renowned trial lawyer named Tyler Cox, and he is representing the acquaintances of Nolan's that took him to Horn Island on their boat, the Triton. Curious, we've seen, hey, let's pull up that video control room of everyone getting on the boat before they went to Horn Island. It's very interesting, evidentiarily. Okay, here we go. This is from the Officer Tatum show, and you're about to see people. There they are down at the right. And there's actual video of people see the boat at about 1 o'clock. Oh, there we go. Excellent shot, guys. People are getting on, people getting off. And it keeps going to where you see everybody that got on the boat. But here's my big question tonight, before I can even get to the alleged witnesses that Tyler Cox is telling us about. Dave Mack, joining me, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Can I see the video again, please? Dave Mack, I'm seeing everybody preparing the Triton to go out, preparing to go out. In this shot, they're down at about 3 o'clock. Okay, keep looking. 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then suddenly you switch to a different camera. There you go. That's the boat. So, Dave Mack, where is the evidence? Where is the video of the boat? Is that Nolan right there? Walking along the light blue shorts, and he at that time had on a white shirt. I think that's Nolan right there. Dave Mack, where is the evidence, the video evidence of them coming back?
Nancy, we have not seen evidence of them coming back. Remember, 3 boats caravanned out to the island, and then we have different stories about when they arrived back on the mainland. But we don't have video of any of them showing back up. So we don't have that
video.
Correct.
Okay, let's circle back to the alleged witnesses that... He's a great trial lawyer, by the way. Wins a lot of cases. This Tyler Cox, he's representing the acquaintances that went to Horn Island with Nolan. I've got to get to the phone torpedo, but he's not the only one that says they have witnesses. Listen.
These 2 witnesses, 2 very reliable, very credible, and very upstanding members of the community, they saw Nolan, and they've known Nolan for years. There's no chance that they made a mistake. And by the way, this can be corroborated through other evidence, other eyewitness accounts. And that's the end of it right there.
That's from the Officer Tatum show. Susan Hendricks joining me, veteran investigative journalist, author of Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi. What witnesses? I understand that there's video and witnesses. One places him there at 5, one places him there at 6. Significance, the Triton, and we can show this by GPS. They are right about this, left Horn Island around 4:30. So if he is spotted, and you can confirm to me that he is spotted there at 5 or 6, If that video has a timestamp on it and I can corroborate that, or I can corroborate the witnesses weren't drunk. Hey, let's see that video control room again of Nolan bent over and all you can see is his blue trunk right there. Now that's not a very good eyewitness right there, okay? Do I think that's him? Yeah, I do. I do think that's Nolan. But I would tear that up in court. Tear it to shreds. There's all sorts of, you know what? Hold on, Susan Hendricks. Greg Morse joining me, veteran trial lawyer, founder of Morse Legal. He's in the Southern District of Florida, former West Palm Beach public defender, and author of The Untested. Greg, in Florida, as in Georgia, as in this jurisdiction of Mississippi, the code, the official code of Mississippi, annotated, lays out how you establish or cross-examine, same thing, same criteria, an eyewitness, such as, I memorized them. How far were you away from the witness? From the target. What was the lighting? Do you wear glasses? Were you wearing them that night? Were you inebriated? Had you smoked pot? How can you prove that to me? Did anything obstruct your view? Was it daytime or nighttime? What time of the day was it? What were the conditions? You go on and on and on. You can rattle them off, right? I know you can. So
absolutely.
How do I know the eyewitness can't identify anything except the back of his legs, like in that video?
Well, that's the thing. There's no details about any identification. It's just a broad statement that other people saw Nolan after the boat left. The video you just showed shows from a view from behind of someone bending over. Did the person have sunglasses on? Were they familiar with who they were actually looking at and identifying? How much had they drank during the day? It was a party scene. That's what usually these boat spots are. There's one by me in West Palm Beach, very similar setup called Peanut Island. So most people also, right, they don't think something's important until after the fact. They're just going about their day, notice people walking by. So from what you showed, that's not a very strong identification from that position, but there's no details.
While I've got you, Greg Morse, let me throw another question at you. And look, I'm not wearing a prosecution or a defense hat. As you know, I'm a crime victim. I would say I'm coming at it from that angle. But I was very disturbed, Greg, when I got wind that there is no criminal investigation. It's been said over and over and over. Why not? We don't know how he died. For instance, if he did have water in his lungs, okay, maybe he did drown. But how did he get in the water? Did he fall in the water? Was somebody, wrestling with him in the water and they held him down? They went, oh, my stars, I killed him and left. Did he hit his head?
Well,
There's a lot more to it than saying, oh, yeah, he drowned. How can someone state there is no criminal investigation? I understand a grand jury is about to be convened. That doesn't mean there's a crime, but doesn't that suggest to you a grand jury inside the Superior Courthouse, inside the district attorney's office, would suggest there is a criminal investigation?
Well, it would potentially lead someone to believe that, yeah, a criminal investigation was undergoing. However, when we look at how this has played out over the last 6 weeks, how law enforcement has acted, they haven't seized Nolan Wells' phone at this point. In a criminal investigation, law enforcement's going to use those tools to get this information.
Are
So
you
this could
sitting
just be
down,
a
Morris?
drowning. I'm sitting down, and this could just be a drowning. And that's why they're looking at
Yes,
it that
could.
way, because
Nobody's
nothing's told
fighting
them
with
it's
you yet.
But everything's not a crime.
Oh,
It doesn't
my
have to be
stars.
investigated as a
You're
crime.
still talking. We've already established that. Here's the other, you know what? I'm going to let you think about what you just said. I'm going to go to Jeff Shetler joining us. Guys, this is a special guest joining us out of Edisto Island, South Carolina. Former police K-9 handler, author of 5 books. Last one, 2 weeks to operational tracking. I like this one, Red Dog Rising, K-9 trailing, the straightest path, tactical tracker teams, the Tao of trailing. He is at gak9.com. Question, I get this a lot from the viewers, so you can put it to rest. How long does a person have to be dead before a cadaver dog will pick up on that scent?
Well, honestly, a dog's going to pick up on the live or dead scent as soon as they're out there. So the time frame, from hours to a day or so is really not a big deal. It doesn't matter what type of dog you have that's looking for humans. Within that first 24 hours, either type of dog, a live find or a deceased person dog, is going to be viable. They're going to pick up on anything that's there. The big issue that we have here is primarily the contamination. After the fact, if the dog was placed at the scene initially to search for our victim, then the chances are the success rate would actually be pretty good. The island is very, very small. There's not a lot of hiding places. There's not a lot of places he could go. On the other hand, inside the water might be a different story. We have tide issues and everything else that are occurring there.
So you bring in a scent dog. I would assume you bring in a scent dog first. But the issue with that, in my mind, probatively, like what can I use? How can I use that trial? What's it going to prove for me? I already know Nolan was on the boat to start with. So, of course, the dog is going to pick up Nolan's scent on the boat. That's not hard to figure out. So I know a scent dog is going to pick up on that. But a cadaver dog. What should have been done immediately with a cadaver dog? And I'm putting this out there not to say woulda, coulda, shoulda. Maybe it happened and we haven't been informed. The press, the media, has no right to information in an ongoing investigation. So this may have been done and we haven't been told. I can only pray. So regarding a cadaver dog, what should have been done, Jeff Shetler, and how should it have been done, and when should it have been done?
Lock down the location. Don't let anybody on there. Get the dogs in. See what type of reaction they have. Every second that goes by, every minute that goes by, every hour that goes by will have an impact on the dog work when it comes to age of the material, age of the odor, and more importantly, what your contamination factor is. And this is the one big thing that nobody ever really thinks about. That they think the dogs are going to be these magical creatures that detect everything that you're looking for. But that's going to be mitigated dramatically by any type of human activity on the scene. That's the first thing that has to happen. So if you're going to use dogs, you need to get them out there right away. They actually have to be one of the first things on scene.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. If you are a homeowner, you've probably thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this debt? But you don't because of your low mortgage rate. That low rate, it's not saving you if you're drowning in credit card interest. People are calling American Financing, and American Financing is saving customers an average of $800. That's not in all, that's a month, by using their equity to pay off the credit card debt. Using their home equity to pay off credit card debt. No upfront fees. It costs you nothing to find out what you could be saving. And if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. American Financing, 866-888-0344. Repeat, 866-888-0344. Or just go online to americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Disclaimer, NMLS 182334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, APR for rates in the 5S start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 866-888-0344 for details about credit costs and terms. Go to http://www.americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Average savings are based on borrowers who save over $199.99. And good luck. Straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. You can find his hit YouTube show, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. But most important, he is a death investigator with over 10,000 death scenes under his belt. Isn't it true, Joe Scott, that a cadaver dog, aka a human remains detection dog, can absolutely detect the scent of a dead person as early as 45 minutes to 3 hours after the death because of the cellular breakdown and organic compounds. Could you translate what I just said, which I've said in court before, into regular people talk?
Yeah, so our building blocks are cells, and so those cells begin to break down. And you're right. People don't understand that human decomposition literally begins at a cellular level the moment we're gone, okay? So the two compounds that you're looking for here when it comes to cadaver searches utilizing canine assets are putrescine and cadaverine, or cadaverine as well. And what they are, they're an organic compound that combine as a result of the cellular breakdown, and it gives off a particular odor. Now, to what Jeff was saying just a moment ago, if there is some type of, let's just say, blood evidence, all right, on the boat, that I pray this boat was locked down quickly. If there's a point of impact, say, for instance, on a railing, any of the gunnels in there, those areas in there, and you have blood deposition, guess what happens, Nancy? That blood begins to break down, just like a body does. Okay, so you'll have the scent that is there, and it is wholly different than tracking a human. All right. Now, where else would you find it? Well, we know that Nolan's remains are allegedly found on the shore, right? They're allegedly right there. Now, we also know, and remember what the second autopsy said, he's in an advanced state of decomposition at this point in time. So the trick is here trying to
That's
understand.
when he's found on the beach. Hold on.
Exactly.
Joe Scott, that's when he's found on the beach. But my understanding, and of course, I'm just a trial lawyer. I'm not a canine expert like Jeff Shetler is, but within minutes to hours, minutes, dogs can pick up on the scent of human decomp. It starts almost immediately, and the dog can smell that.
You can say within 45 minutes, but I have to tell you, there is a lot of variability here, dependent upon a lot of environmental conditions, even the individual that is decomposing. That's going to play into it. So that's not a static number. It's a bracketed number. So you don't know how long it's going to take for this to actually begin to develop.
We also know that well-trained dogs, like Jeff Shetler works with, can still hit on decomp, even microscopic particles in soil, long after the body has been removed, sometimes years or even decades later, depending on the condition. But as Shetler just pointed out, in these conditions, where the surface of the boat is exposed to water, to wind, to contamination, not so much. I'm going to circle back to Jeff in just a moment regarding any possibility of tracking human decomp or human scent on Horn Island. The thing is, we know he was there, so we know the dogs will hit on him being there alive. But what about dead? I also want to clear something else up, and this is really important. Greg Morse, these acquaintances that went out on the beach, I'm not razor locked on them. I'm looking at them. I'm looking at everybody. Who are these two witnesses? If they are telling the truth, that Nolan Wells was on Horn Island at either 5 or 6 o'clock, then the acquaintances on the Triton are in the clear, because Morse, I know, based on their GPS, what time they left the island. So we have to keep our minds open as to what, who, what, where, why, the whole shebang. We can't lock in on those acquaintances if they had already left and he's still on the island. Is that true? I don't know. But it could be, right? Many an investigation has failed because the prosecutor did not keep their mind open as to potential suspects, right?
Well, That's 100% right. You know, the police have to keep an open mind here. It's not even a criminal investigation. So 6 weeks approximately has gone by. The folks that were on the boat with Nolan, nothing has come out even remotely to indicate they were involved in some foul play at this point at all. They're just people that went out to this island with their friend. It appears their friend may have stayed afterwards, and maybe a tragedy happened, maybe something else happened that wasn't involving them.
A tragedy
But
did happen.
6
Nolan Wells
weeks,
is dead, and I'm going to find out how. But I tell you
sure,
what,
but you're talking
I
about
am
6
curious
weeks.
about
This is
why no
this is
polygraphs have been
isolated.
taken. I'm just very
Why?
curious.
But
But
why?
many
Why?
defense
For
lawyers
what?
wouldn't dream of letting their
They're
client
not
take polygraphs. Let me
suspects.
get to the
But
phone.
Nancy, you're turning
Oh, dear
a
Lord.
what's
Of
not a
course they're
criminal
not suspects. You've said
investigation
that
and
10
want the
times. You're
trappings
wasting my
of
time.
one.
Stop it. Cuz
But when
Mike.
you talk
Cuz
about
Mike. I see his
polygraph,
lips moving. I hear. Okay. Yeah. Just keep him just like that. Yeah. That's the way I like Morse. Don't hurt your head, Morse. Don't hurt your head. Okay. Susan Hendricks. Oh, my stars, Hendricks. The family is now seemingly being accused of wrongdoing because they haven't handed the phone over yet. What happened back on, I've got a big note here, phone July 15. Isn't that when the family had a meeting and said, yes, you can have the phone, but they want independent examiners there at the same time, right? Tell me July 15, what happened?
July 15th, the attorney for the parents of Nolan met and said, yes, we want to give over the phone, but we want someone in the middle here, someone from the outside, an expert to analyze the phone. It appeared everyone agreed. Then all of a sudden they get a letter saying, we want the phone and you have 24 hours to send it over. The DA sent that. And the parents were out of town and said, wait, we don't have the time to do that. Hence the narrative that they're not cooperating. Now, they say, Nolan's parents, look, we have our experts on standby this week, pick a day. And not to mention on the 19th would have been Nolan's 19th birthday, a difficult week for the family, but they say, hey, we'll give up his cell phone. We want someone, a mediator, if you will, an expert in the middle.
Well, this is interesting, what you just said. Joe Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, I've been there, and it is a world-class Crim Pro division. Whole building, whole floor is set up just to recreate scenes. I was so impressed by it. Joe Scott has worked with me on multiple recreations, intricate recreations at Jacksonville State University to try to figure out, is what the defendant is saying, does that make sense? Is what the state is saying, does that make sense? Just all sorts of things you can learn from actually recreating the scene. That said, Joe Scott, I have examined evidence myself at the crime lab, and the crime lab out on Panthersville Road is amazing, state of the art, with the defense attorney there. Mm-hmm. And I typically would not allow a defense team to examine the evidence unless I was there. Do I think they're going to do something nefarious? Maybe, probably not. But I don't want them to even touch it if it could somehow, compromise the evidence. And it can. A lot of the times, even touching it can compromise the evidence. So this is not unheard of, that the family wants an independent investigator there when the phone is searched.
Yeah, you're right. And it happens. Nancy, I've actually been in autopsy suites with defense attorneys, believe it or not. All manner of people come through the labs over the years as an independent set of eyes. So let's just say that they do, in fact, have an independent individual examine this phone. And I think this question goes back to you as a prosecuting attorney. Would any kind of findings that were on that phone, would they be negated as a result of the state not doing? If you wanted to move forward as using this evidence in a criminal prosecution, perhaps, would it invalidate it since the state is not doing it? And what are you going to find? And how many hands are going to be on this phone at that given time?
Are you saying that if the defense did their own investigation of the phone and the state did not, would
Yeah.
that negate the defense findings?
Yeah, because remember, we've got a grand jury that's going to be
Let me tell
impaneled,
you,
allegedly. Yeah.
HELLYES. Because the first thing, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would do is,
Yeah.
isn't it true? I gave you the opportunity to review the phone. Isn't that true? On this date. And you didn't do it. So don't come complaining now. Oh, yeah, that would be a matter for cross-exam. You're on cross-examination. Who is our next sponsor? Well, here is a probative clue. Meow. Smalls makes fresh human-grade food designed for cats to thrive, while Big Pet Food uses cheap filler. Smalls features 80% animal protein and zero artificial junk. 88% of cat parents report better digestion, softer fur, and more energy for their cats to play. It's a healthy investment your cat will love. If you want to invest in your cat's health, Smalls is giving you 60% off your cat's first order. 60% off plus free shipping and free treats for life when you go to smalls.com/Nancy, SMALLS, smalls.com/Nancy. 60% off your first order, free shipping, and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/Nancy. Thanks, Smalls, and thank you from our cat, Cinnamon. Joe Scott, Morse, everybody jump in if you've got a question for Scott Eicher. Let me tell you who Eicher is. Digital forensics expert, founding member of the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team, historical cellular analysis expert, former FBI, 22 years, former homicide, Norfolk, Virginia Police Department, works multiple cases, and currently with Precision Cellular Analysis. I could go on. Scott, tell me how this examination, I mean, you don't just pick up the phone and go, okay, I looked at it. What is a phone examination? How do I get evidence of potential snaps that were sent that day, texts, emails, photos taken during those critical hours? And important, how do I find out if anything was deleted? We've heard, yes, it's deleted. No, it wasn't deleted. The only way we're going to know is from a forensics exam. How do you do it? Now, take baby steps. Go ahead.
It's pretty easy nowadays. You get the physical phone itself, you hook it up to a device like the Cellbrite, which is one of the main producers of this type of software that can download phones. First of all, obviously, you have to have the password to the phone. If not, then you have to go through a lot of processes to get past the password and into the phone. But once you're into the phone, and this can be done with other people standing by, as you were talking about, another investigator for the defense or for the family or something like that being there, they can sit there and watch you download the phone. And basically, once you download a copy of what's on the phone, and you're not really messing with the evidence that's on the phone, you're not changing it, you're just copying it to another computer, and then you can start going through that data. You can look at all the text messages, and it'll even let you know which ones have been deleted. Now, of course, deleted means, it's
Put them up, please. Put them up, please. What do you see when you're looking for deleted? Do you see like you log on and you just see all this data, X's and O's and digits, and how do I tell something's been deleted? Explain that to me. I mean, unless it's in recently deleted, but even my twins at age 3 knew how to go into my phone and find recently deleted and delete it. How do you find it?
So it's actually just, on the computer screen, you're looking at all the lists of text messages, and it says right to the right of it, this one was deleted. So in an aspect, if it hadn't been overwritten, think about how computers work. you delete something, just like a phone, you delete something, it kind of takes it and moves it into a non-use, to an area you're not using. And then once, if the phone starts getting full, it starts writing over that deleted stuff. So things that were deleted at some point in time are still there and can be recovered. The actual texts of the text message, the content of the text messages is still there until it's getting written over by the phone.
Scott Eicher, has your company, Precision Cellular Analysis, performed these independent examinations of phones?
Yes, they have. We have a whole group of individuals in our company that just specialize in downloading phones, rebuilding phones that are damaged so that the data can be pulled from the phone, and breaking into the phones if we don't have the password.
What is Celebrite and how is it used?
It's a program that's been around for a good amount of time, probably 15 years, and each year it gets more updated, but it's a program that actually goes into the phone and allows you to copy the information from the phone onto to a different computer. And then you can look at that data and spend time going through it, get all the chronological information from text messages to pictures to Snapchat. So you can get a timeline from all these different areas of the phone.
What about a digital forensics go bag? A portable data collection rig. We saw it in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. It was used when the investigators went into the Guthrie family home. You see it on field operations, intelligence, digital forensics. They extract or they mirror digital info right there on location. A tactical exploitation kit like a forensics go bag.
Yes, those are available, and basically Cellbrite is that also. It's more for phones, but you can have the same type of device for computers and for other devices in the home. But Cellbrite is also a portable device that you can take to a crime scene, take to a house, or go to a individual's residence and do that download. It doesn't have to be done in the office.
According to the family, they have made the phone and their independent experts readily available.
The Jackson County DA's office, as well as our forensic team, and possibly the FBI, we're going to together download and examine the phone. So it's done one time with everybody together, right? This is very common in the law. This is what is supposed to happen. We are waiting for the DA to determine the time, the place, the date. Let us know, and we are going to be there with our forensics team and anybody else, but it's done one time, one examination. We're ready for it to happen.
From our friends at WLOX, that's Liza Park working with Nolan's mother. To you, Susan Hendricks, now somehow it's made to look like the family, Nolan's family, is not cooperating. Let me understand what has happened. So Nolan's family went out of state. I don't know why. And while they were gone, they get a demand letter from the DA's office?
Yeah, that said you have 24 hours. And they were at the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists Conference in Georgia. They spoke on stage and they said, wait a minute, we're not there. We can't do that. I thought we agreed on July 15th at that meeting that we would come together and do this. And now you're acting like we're not cooperating, but we are. So then they came back now, Nolan's family attorney saying, okay, any day this week, we need 24 hours notice and we'll make it happen. They're not hiding the phone. They just don't trust for the DA to have the phone alone without an independent investigation into the phone, someone who's not biased.
And, Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter, the family is afraid. Many people have seen injustice in other cases that have nothing to do with them. And I believe they fear evidence will be destroyed or mishandled, and it can never be recaptured. It's very possible it could never be recaptured. I mean, you and I and Joe Scott, you did an incredible recreation in the Ellen Greenberg case, remember? Ellen Greenberg stabbed, I think, 20 plus times, including the back of the head, the back of the neck, the back, actually severing the dura of her spinal cord. And the ruling was suicide. Okay, this is what I'm leading up to. So,
yes, ma'am.
All of the evidence was not documented at the scene. The police this is in Philly, told the apartment manager, sure, clean it up. As a matter of fact, here's a professional cleaner. Call them. They had it professionally cleaned. Bye-bye, evidence. Gone. Gone. Not only that, the apartment manager took a video of the inside of Ellen's apartment to show basically, look, this is how it was before. This is how it is after. We want to prove we didn't take anything. We didn't steal anything. Everything is accounted for. And that's SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. So when they didn't process the crime scene, they went, oh, thank goodness, at least we have the video. They handed the video over to Philly PD and they lost it.
Yeah.
Just let that
There's
sink
one
in
more
for a
thing.
moment.
There's one more
That
thing that
case
kind of ties
still-
back to. There's
Go
one more
ahead.
thing that kind of ties back to Nolan's case here as well, and that's the fact that with Ellen, I don't know if you recall this, the computer made it out of there as well. Do you recall that? And that was never examined, right? And so that's, again, we're left wanting, Nancy,
Ellen's
relative to all of the data.
with all of the info leading up to the time
Everything.
of her murder, ruled suicide,
Yeah.
taken off the scene. Now, I'm not claiming that the people that took it, they were family members of the fiance. For all I know, they took it because they didn't want anybody to steal it. And nothing nefarious happened. But the problem is, you lock down a scene. I mean, look what's happened to Nancy Guthrie. A pizza delivery guy came and walked right over the blood evidence to deliver a pizza. Same thing here, Dave Mack. I get why the Nolan Wells family is fearful.
Well, Nancy, this investigation, I'm putting air quotes in that because if you remember early on, it was a drowning, and no investigation had even been done. You realize he was missing. It wasn't like it was hours and they went back and he was missing for almost 2 days. And the family early on was not getting information that they felt like they should. All they're saying is, we want to be assured of the chain of custody, how the extraction on this phone is going to be performed, who would have access to the extracted data. That's important. Preservation of the evidence. And then, when is this phone going to be returned to us? This is the last thing they have of their son. And those things that I just mentioned, those were the items discussed on July 15th. And there was no follow-up after that until August 12th, when the DA's office, tells the family, well, you got 48 hours to turn the phone over, and they were out of town. So, there's a lot going on with the most important part of the evidence.
There was no way by
that
the
we
time
have.
they find out about the letter that they could comply with the 48-hour requirement. Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories and stream it first on Fox 1. When breaking crime news develops, we investigate it and bring it to you. Bombshell updates, answers to unanswered questions from cases making the headlines and cases you may never have heard of until Crime Stories. We go inside investigations with exclusive interviews, crime victims, families seeking justice, investigators, experts, and sources from within the case itself. Stay on top of the nation's biggest trials with us, including gavel-to-gavel coverage with real-time analysis. Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Stream it first on Fox 1. I hope to see you there, and thank you, friend.
A teenage boy climbs onto a boat with people he trusts. Hours later, that same boat pulls away from a remote stretch of island without him. What happens in the time between his last confirmed sighting and the moment his body washes up on the shore, decomposed beyond recognition, is a mystery no one has been able to answer. Not the family, not the lawyers, not even the investigators who, 6 weeks later, still won't call this what it might be: a homicide. 2 witnesses say they saw him alive on that island, hours after the boat was already gone. If they're telling the truth, everything we thought we knew about his final hours is wrong. And somewhere in his phone, the one his family has been fighting to protect from the moment investigators came asking, could be the last real trace of what happened to him before he died. This is the case of Nolan Wells. And tonight, we're pulling apart every thread: the timeline, the witnesses, the phone standoff, the science of how a body decomposes on an island no one was watching closely enough. Before we go further, this case involves details about death, decomposition, and forensic evidence that some viewers may find disturbing. Please take care while watching, and feel free to step away if you need to. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe so you don't miss where this case goes next, and drop a comment letting us know where in the world you're watching from tonight. If you want more true crime breakdowns like this one, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Nolan Wells was 18 years old, a rising sophomore wide receiver who had just started building his football career at Southwest Mississippi Community College. Back home, he was remembered at Ocean Springs High School, where teachers and teammates described him as steady, well-liked, the kind of kid who showed up for people. Nothing about his week suggested anything was wrong. On the evening of July 3rd, Wells told his parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley, that he'd be spending the 4th of July weekend with friends. Later that night, he left the house. It was a conversation thousands of families have every summer. Nobody in that house had any reason to think it would be the last real conversation they'd ever have with him. The destination was Horn Island, a barrier island sitting roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's federally protected, uninhabited, no roads, no facilities, nothing out there but sand, scrub brush, and open water in every direction. The only way in or out is by boat. And on the 4th of July, that island was not empty. An estimated 300 people had made the trip that day, many of them former classmates from Ocean Springs, all gathered for the holiday the way they had for years. Nolan Wells arrived on that island with friends, on a boat, as part of that crowd. And at some point, in the middle of a celebration surrounded by people who knew him, something shifted. He didn't come back with the group he arrived with. That single fact is where this case begins, and it's the reason we're still asking questions about Nolan Wells today. If you're new here, this is Crime Chronicles, and we follow cases like this one until there's an answer. Subscribe now, because this story is far from over. GPS data pulled from the boat that carried Nolan Wells to Horn Island tells part of the story. That boat left the island at 4:31 in the afternoon. It arrived back at Fort Bayou on the mainland at 5:52, and it was fully docked by 6:06. Those numbers aren't estimates or memories. They come directly from the vessel's own tracking data, and they're the closest thing investigators have to a fixed anchor point in an otherwise uncertain timeline. But even that piece of evidence comes with a contradiction attached. At some point during the trip, there was a call for assistance out on the water. Sea Tow, the marine towing service, says that once the caller told them the issue had already been resolved, they never actually towed the boat at all. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources tells a different version, stating the boat was towed 2.75 miles before it resumed normal operation on its own. 2 agencies, 2 accounts of the same boat, on the same day, and neither one lines up cleanly with the other. Then there's the question of why Nolan wasn't on that boat when it left. According to friends who were interviewed by investigators, Nolan chose to stay behind on the island to talk with a woman he didn't previously know, and he told them he'd make his own way back to the mainland later. Those same friends say they didn't leave him behind by choice. They say their own boat was taking on water, and returning to shore wasn't optional. Nolan's parents don't accept that explanation as the full picture. Christine and Elmore have said publicly that the son they knew wasn't someone who would choose to stay behind on a remote island, alone, without a way home, and go silent. To them, the story their son's friends are telling doesn't match the person who raised. An independent review of the available photos, videos, GPS records, and witness statements later identified something investigators still can't close. there's a gap. A stretch of time between the last moment anyone can independently confirm where Nolan actually was and the moment that boat pulled away from the island. Nobody has filled that gap with verified information yet. Not investigators, not the family's team, not anyone. But this isn't where the story ends. This is where it gets complicated. If this timeline has you asking questions, you're not the only one. Drop your thoughts in the comments and like this video. The more people looking at this case, the better. For 2 days, Nolan Wells was simply missing. Then on July 6th, a search effort involving the United States Coast Guard, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and the National Park Service located a body in the water just off Horn Island. Dental records were used to confirm what everyone feared. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind confirmed to local media that the body was Nolan Wells. In the earliest hours of this becoming a criminal case, the tone from law enforcement was measured. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter told reporters that detectives were interviewing people who'd had direct contact with Nolan on the day he disappeared, and at that point, in his words, no foul play had been identified. That statement set the framework the investigation would operate under for weeks to come, a drowning being treated, initially, as exactly that. Part of what shaped that early framing came from witness accounts collected by investigators. According to a preliminary document from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, witnesses told authorities that Nolan had been drinking heavily with friends on the island earlier that day. It's one detail among many, and on its own, it explains nothing about what actually happened to him. But it's part of the official record, and it's part of how this case was first understood. There's also the water itself to consider. Horn Island sits in open Gulf water, and people familiar with the area describe the currents around it as notoriously rough. The coroner's office has said it isn't unfamiliar with drowning cases originating from Mississippi's barrier islands, a detail that added weight to the early theory, even as the full picture remained unclear. At the same time, the case was drawing attention far beyond Jackson County. Photos from that day show Nolan surrounded largely by white friends, and for some observers, that detail, layered onto Mississippi's difficult racial history, raised uncomfortable questions about whether race played any role in what happened to him. NAACP President Derek Johnson addressed this directly, saying it was important to let a full and thorough investigation play out before anyone drew conclusions about whether this was simply an accident. What's true is this: a young man went into the water off a remote island and came out of it without his life. Everything else, the how, the why, and whether anyone bears responsibility, was still, at this stage, unanswered. We're staying on this case until there's real clarity. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next update the moment new details surface. Not satisfied with how the investigation was unfolding, Nolan's family brought in nationally known civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Crump's team commissioned an independent autopsy, and the early results were released with a specific, careful phrase attached. Cause and manner of death, undetermined, pending further investigation. Not drowning, not confirmed, undetermined. That independent autopsy was conducted by forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell, and his initial findings were described as inconclusive. Crump went further than that, publicly stating that certain body parts appeared to be missing following the state's own autopsy, a claim that, if true, raises serious questions about how the body was handled before Mitchell ever got access to it. Meanwhile, the official state autopsy was completed, but its results weren't released to the public. Instead, they were sent directly to a grand jury. District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath explained that this isn't unusual for her office. Every death in the county, she said, aside from natural causes and non-criminal accidents, gets presented to a grand jury as standard procedure. Whether or not that answers people's frustrations, it's the process this case has been placed inside of. In the middle of all this, one piece of video caused a wave of panic online. A clip began circulating that some viewers believed showed Nolan in a physical confrontation. His friend, Trayston Shepard, addressed it directly, explaining that the yelling heard in that video wasn't a fight involving Nolan at all. It was her own voice. One rumor, at least, was put to rest. Behind the scenes, the investigation kept widening. Roughly 60 witnesses have now been interviewed. The three friends who were with Nolan on the boat to Horn Island have each been interviewed in depth, more than once. And the FBI has stepped in to assist with examining digital evidence connected to the case, a detail that signals this is no longer being treated as a simple, isolated drowning. And that's when the investigation stopped being just about a drowning. What do you think really happened in that missing stretch of time? Leave your theory in the comments. We read every one of them. Nolan's phone has become one of the most contested pieces of evidence in this entire case. The family says it has always been willing to hand it over for examination. On August 17th, attorney Ahmad R. Smith sent a letter to District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath addressing exactly where things stood and making clear the family's position hadn't changed. They wanted the phone examined. They just wanted it done right. The tension traces back to what happened just days earlier. Reports indicate the district attorney's office directed the family to turn over the phone by 9 in the morning on August 14th, giving them less than 48 hours to comply. The problem was timing. Nolan's parents were out of state when that demand arrived. And beyond the short notice, there was a bigger issue neither side had resolved. No finalized protocol existed yet, covering how the extraction would actually work, who would maintain chain of custody, how the extracted data would be preserved, who would have access to it, and when, or whether, the phone itself would eventually be returned to the family. For a family that has already raised concerns about how evidence was handled earlier in this case, those unanswered questions weren't small details. They were the entire point. In his letter, Smith reiterated that the family remains cooperative and is actively conducting its own independent investigation alongside the district attorney's office. He specifically asked the DA to confirm whether the phone examination would still take place at the location both sides had previously agreed on, a nearby community college. As of now, this remains unresolved. The pressure on this case isn't just local anymore. The Congressional Black Caucus has sent a formal letter pushing for federal oversight of the investigation. Attorney Eric Hertz has said publicly that based on the evidence timeline he's seen, he believes this case could go before a grand jury within roughly 30 days. And several of the friends who were with Nolan that day have now retained their own separate attorneys, a sign that everyone involved is preparing for this to escalate well beyond where it currently stands. Adding to the noise, state officials have issued a public warning that fake documents related to this case are circulating online, urging people to be careful about what they trust and share. The moment that grand jury decision comes down, we'll be covering it in full. Subscribe now so you're not finding out about it secondhand. As of right now, the state autopsy into Nolan Wells' death is complete. Its findings haven't been made public, and under the district attorney's stated process, they won't be. Not until a grand jury has reviewed the case and decided whether any charges are warranted. That decision is still pending. Behind the scenes, attorneys on both sides are already positioning for what could come next, including the possibility of civil litigation regardless of what the grand jury ultimately decides. That's not unusual in cases like this one, but it does tell you something. Nobody involved expects this to simply end quietly. This week carries its own weight for the people who knew Nolan best. He would have turned 19 on August 19th. Ben Crump has called for a day of prayer to mark the date, and a vigil is being planned in Biloxi to honor him, not as a case number, but as the son, teammate, and friend people are still grieving. What we're left with are the same open questions this case has carried from the beginning. What actually happened in that gap of time before the boat left? What the phone will eventually reveal once both sides agree on how to examine it? And what, if anything, a grand jury decides once every piece of evidence is finally in front of them? We're not going to guess at those answers. We're going to wait for them, the same way Nolan's family has had to. If you've been with us through this entire case, thank you for staying. Subscribe now so you're notified the moment the grand jury reaches a decision. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. We'll be back with the update the moment there's one to share.